Okay, the type of drawing we're going to begin with is called perspective drawing. Perspective. I'm using a marker, Sharpie, so that you can see it a little better with the camera. Hopefully it's adequate. And I'll tell you a little bit about my philosophy of drawing. I really believe anyone can learn. Some people say drawing is a talent, and I think to a degree that might be true, but mostly I think talent is an interest more than anything. People are really interested, so they do more of it and therefore get better at it. It can be learned. I know this for a fact. I've taught a lot of students to draw, and it's mostly knowledge, accumulation of knowledge. If you know what to do, you can do it. But if you approach a blank piece of paper and you have a project in mind and you don't know where to start, it's pretty difficult. So what I'm going to be teaching here to begin with is how you approach drawings that you want to do. How do you start? What are the steps? And so once you have that, you can expand and learn all the techniques. And the reason I'm choosing perspective drawing is because it's one of the fundamental things that you need to do to set up for whatever your project is. Because perspective actually is your point of view. Point of view. So what that is, what does that mean? Well, that's where you are. That shows where you are in relation to the subject, or whatever you're drawing. You know, sometimes you are above the subject looking down at it. Sometimes you are below the subject looking up, to the side. So you could be anywhere in relation to your subject. And how do you show that in your drawing? Because drawing, the challenge of drawing is taking a three-dimensional world and trying to put it onto a two-dimensional surface. Now we're going to talk about dimensions a little bit because they come up quite a little bit in the discussion of perspective drawing. And there is a little bit of vocabulary. I'm going to give you a few vocabulary words. I want you to actually write all of this down that I put on the paper, perspective drawing included. So you need to know that it represents your point of view, and there are several methods of perspective drawing, and we'll get into that as we go along, because there's a basic one-point perspective, and then you go up to three-point perspective. And the complexity of it kind of raises as you go along. But it's really not hard. It isn't really complex. It's just an understanding, and once you have a start, you're on your way. Okay, dimensions. Let's talk about that. D-I-M-N-E-N, dimensions. What is that? Well, you know, you always hear this talk about 3D. Everything's 3D these days, including movies and games and so forth. Well, what that refers to is three things referring to an object. There are three of them, three dimensions. that we discuss, and one is height, or height, and another is width, and the third is the depth. Okay, so what is the height? Well, height is generally measured up and down. So it would be a line like this. It could be any length. So height can vary. It can be a variable. Actually, all of these things are variables, and that means they're just never the same, depending on the object. Okay, so you have a height variable, which is a dimension, and that is represented by a vertical line. So let's get that down. A vertical. Vertical means up and down, straight up and down. Okay, width equals this direction, side to side. Okay, could be a long line or a short line, you don't know, it depends on your subject. Hopefully you're seeing this okay. And that is represented in perspective drawing by a horizontal. A horizontal line goes side to side. It may get you, it may take a bit for you to get used to the terminology, because in perspective drawing we use these terms all the time. Now, most people are used to a different kind of drawing altogether. It's not so regimented, it's not so restricted, it's a freer kind of looking and trying to emulate what you see. Well, this is a little more of a formula, but it is really the basis for all kinds of drawing, because if you understand perspective, it leads you right into a freer form, and you will make objects look real instinctively. And that's what our goal is for you to be able to take this knowledge and apply it and make things, start from scratch and accomplish what you foresee in your drawing. You can actually visualize something and then execute it. Okay, depth is how far back an object goes in space, and that in perspective drawing is going to be represented by usually a line that is oblique. It will not always be at the same angle. So it's going to be an angled line of some sort. It won't always be the same, but it will always be going back in space. And how do you know how to make these lines? Okay, these are easy. Going straight across, straight up and down. How do you know how to do this one at an angle, and what angle do you choose? Well, there is a method, and that's what I'm going to be teaching, is how to figure out what that depth line looks like. And there's going to be many of them in your drawings, and where do they go? Okay, we'll be